Hi, thanks for joining me. We're going to be making Japanese ramen noodle bowl soup today. I really love ramen. I mean, love ramen. Not the cardboardy thing that you buy with the chemical packet of flavoring, but the actual proper Japanese ramen noodles. It's amazing. It's so satisfying. It's filling. The nutrients are just fantastically off the charts, and also it's really satisfying on like a cold winter's day. Nothing better than chicken noodle soup, right? Anyway, so instead of noodles, obviously, I've been working on this. I've tried different things to substitute the noodles, and the best one, no doubt about it, has been the spaghetti squash. Now, you want to keep your fingers, it's important. And I think trying to slice one of these things in half is taking your life into your hands. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop it in the microwave for about 5 minutes. First thing we want to do is take off that label and get a really sharp knife and just make some sort of stabs, sort of where you're going to be making it half when it's softer. So we're not cooking it all the way, we're just going to make it soft enough that we can cut through the flesh easily without cutting through ourselves. And there we go, into the microwave, 5 minutes. Here's everything you're going to need to make my Japanese ramen noodle bowl. We're going to need sushi nori sheets, sea salt, pink Himalayan if you can, coconut aminos, cayenne pepper, garlic powder, avocado or a good olive oil, Chinese 5-spice powder, a spring onion, honey, but the honey is optional, spaghetti squash, baby spinach leaves, and you're going to need 2 chicken breasts. Last on the ingredients, and by no means least, is the chicken bone broth, or chicken broth if you can't get your hands on bone broth. I make my own, and this one is actually a very rich one. It's chicken feet bone broth, which it has super nutrients. We'll go into that another time. But I freeze it in individual 1-cup portions, and I'm going to need 2 of them for this. So to make our chicken, I'm using my cast iron skillet, and I'm going to put in 1 tablespoon of avocado oil. I'm going to heat that up while I wash my chicken breasts, and then we'll pop those in here. So we're going to put that on a high light. I've put it on 7 just to heat up. Chicken breasts are in the pan. We'll turn it down to 4 right now, just while we put in the coconut aminos, 1.5 tablespoons of coconut aminos. There's my 1 and the half. And we put in a 1/2 teaspoon of garlic. And then we're going to turn that right down to simmer and leave it for half an hour covered. Okay, so turn down and leave that for half an hour. So just before we put the lid on, just wanted to show you again, this is kind of the thickness that you're going to want for your ramen bowl. And you see, oh, gorgeously juicy and fabulous looking. So we're going to put that in, we're going to put the lid on and leave it for another 10 minutes on simmer, and then we'll start making our broth. So this, well, it's really hot, difficult to handle, and we're going to leave the spaghetti squash, which has been in the microwave for 5 minutes, just going to leave it to cool for a little bit before we slice it in half, and then we'll de-seed it and get it ready to go in the oven and roast. But just before we do, while we're waiting for that to cool, just wanted to mention that if you have a ramen bowl, that's great. If you don't, it doesn't really matter. And I only use these, I have to say, for presentation, you know, when I have guests, because I don't even use them. I'm kind of not coordinated in that way. So if you don't have that, that's great. Any cereal bowl will do, as long as it's deep enough. And the first thing that we're going to put in here is going to be one of your sushi nori sheets. So we'll do that now while we're just waiting on our spaghetti squash cooling a little tiny bit before we cut it in half. I'm only going to make one portion of this today, but you just really want this in place for now. It's not going to stay. It will once everything's on it, but for now this is good enough because we're only going to need one per bowl. Now let's try and slice this. Oh yeah, there we go. It's going through nicely. If your microwave takes longer than 5 minutes, doesn't matter, just do it in 1 minute increments after that till it's soft enough to have the knife go through it. Okay, so I've got my two halves. My limbs are still intact, which is great. And let's just get rid of the seeds, and then we can roast it in the oven for about half an hour on 400. And I like to just brush it with a little bit of avocado oil and just dust it with a little bit of black pepper. Okay, so we're ready to just paint on a little bit of oil and then black pepper, and then it's going straight into the oven, and we can do our next little stage. So here we go, just a light dusting, that's all you're going to need. Okay, and I've got this ready. Just a baking sheet or a oven-proof flat thing, whatever you want to use. Into the oven, 400. So this is the chicken that we cooked earlier, and now we're going to use, I would say, 2 of these large slices is going to be a portion. So you've got your nori sheet there, and now you've got the chicken at the bottom, which is weighing it down as well. One more little tip. I think this is always best fresh. So what we want to do is, ideally, you'll have tons of spaghetti squash left over. So you keep that in the fridge and just use whatever you need for the next day. But make the broth fresh because it doesn't take that long, and you've got your leftover chicken, your leftover spaghetti squash. The rest of it takes minutes, and it really does. It tastes so much better on the actual day. Okay, so the first thing is your 2 cups of bone broth, chicken bone broth or chicken broth, into the pot. Next is a full teaspoon of garlic powder into the pot. Next, you want a little pinch, so let's go with 1/8 of a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Now, just a little word regarding the coconut aminos. I like 1.5 tablespoons in here, and we've cooked the chicken in some as well. If you taste it at the end and you think it might need a little bit more, by all means put 1 more tablespoon in. I think it's got a more subtle flavor, and you can taste all the other flavors if you just have the 1.5. So entirely up to you. Make it first with 1.5, and you can always add more. And finally, just 1/4 of a teaspoon of this Chinese 5-spice powder. You really don't want too much of that because it really does overpower. One last thing to go in with the broth is 1 spring onion, and we just want to chop it into smallish pieces and then just chuck it in with the broth, and then we're going to let that simmer. Okay, chopping away, just, you know, as I said, not like minute pieces, but just small enough, as you would probably find in, say, miso soup. And now that this is done, we can continue and put our bowl together, because all we need to make now is a soft boiled egg. Spaghetti squash is ready. It ended up taking 40 minutes, but it's now ready to turn into strands of noodles. They're still a bit too hot to handle right now, so we're going to give them a little bit of time to cool down a little bit. It doesn't make it any harder to get the strands of noodles out, so we're okay with that. Time for a cup of tea. Well, now that these have cooled off a little bit, this is what the knife is for, to kind of hold it in place. And then just with your fork, keep on making strands until you've got them all. Now, just for the purpose of speed in this case, I'm just going to take out what I need for this particular bowl. So noodles are going in with the chicken. This is going to look so spectacular, and it's going to taste just as good. I think that that's going to do it for our noodles. We'll know in a moment. And just a tiny bit more. I like a lot. Okay. So here we are. Chicken and noodles are in. Next is going to be a handful of spinach. So baby spinach is going in next. And you know that spinach turns into mush in no time, so as soon as the broth touches it, it's pretty much cooked. So your spinach will go way down in the bowl at this point, well, once the broth is on it, which is going to be in a couple of minutes. And then finally, the last thing to go in is going to be the egg. Okay, ramen bowl is at the ready, and now that the soup is done, I'm just going to take off the lid. It's been simmering away and looks perfect. We're just going to ladle some of that over the spinach. Okay, color's great, and the spinach is ready. I've already started ladling this on top of it, but we'll keep on doing that until it's all in, and then you're ready to do the egg. So once we ladled in the broth and we put in the spinach leaves, we just let it sit for like a minute or two, and as you can see, the spinach is cooked. So what I've just done is ladled a tiny bit more of the spaghetti noodles on top of the spinach and one more piece of chicken. Now we're going to cook our boiled egg. So while the egg's cooking, I'm just going to say that it doesn't have to be soft boiled. And also, when I say soft boiled, I'm not talking about like that you could dip soldiers in it. It needs to be somewhat medium, but if you want it hard boiled, that's fine too. If you overcook the egg, it's really not a problem. It will still be nice. It's just that it kind of like blends into all the other ingredients when it's at that medium point. Okay, this is it. I don't know if this is going to be perfect or if it's going to be too soft or what, so we're going to experience this together. Here's hoping. I think I may have got it just right, but we'll see. Okay, it's completely shelled, and let's see if it's just how I want it. It is. It's perfect. This is exactly what I wanted. So, we're done. Well, your ramen bowl is ready. I'm going to have this for lunch now. Whenever you do make it, I hope that you enjoy it as much as I do. I hope that you never miss noodles again. And I will see you next time. Thanks very much for watching.
If you like this video, click like. If you really like it, click subscribe.